Okay. And if you ever want to look like at it for some reason other than us, look at the camera and not at yourself.
Yeah. That is a good point.
That is a good point.
I
They're
catch myself
what is she
looking
staring at?
there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Into the air.
Okay. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Stigma Stompers, the one and only NAMI of Erie County, Pennsylvania podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Abby.
And I'm your other host, Janana.
Would you like to introduce? Or do you want me to?
If you want to.
Okay. Today with us we have Gina
DiGello.
DiGello. I'm going to start over. Today with us, we have Gina DiGello. We're going to be talking about suicide and her experience with suicide with a loved one. So this is kind of a trigger warning. If you need to not watch this episode, that's fine. I'm also going to tell everyone our local crisis number, local Erie crisis number, 814-456-2014 if you need that. And then you can also text or call 988, which is the national crisis hotline. Just had to throw that out there before we start. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. We know it's a tough subject, so obviously any breaks you need, we'll be taking them. So yeah. Janana, go ahead and kick us off with the questions.
Yeah, we can get started with if you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and why we're here today.
So I'm Gina DiGello, like we said. I'm here today because I participated in the walk, the NAMI walk last fall. I believe that was the first one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And it was amazing in the sense that like I said, I recently just lost my brother to suicide last March and wanted to do something to just give back. One of the first things I had to do was get the obituary together, and I put you guys in there. I don't even know how your name came off the top of my head, but I was just like, all donations go to NAMI.
Oh, thank you.
And just, I know that I did a lot of research after that into who you guys are, and I knew I wanted to participate. But at that event, I have a teenage daughter, and I have a teenage stepdaughter, and some friends came, their friends came, and just the information that you guys had for like the kids, and it was just amazing. So when I saw the email, a week or so ago that invited me to be here and share the story, absolutely 100%. I think it's worth being told. I think that there's probably so many other people that could share the same story with you, and you don't realize how many people go through a lot of the same things. So I've been in Erie my whole life. I wasn't born here, but I've lived here my whole life. I'm 39, and my brother was 34 when he passed, and he would have just turned 35 this year. I think I'm doing the math right. Something like that. I feel like once you're in your 30s, it's over. We don't even pay attention
that's
anymore.
What I've heard.
But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at and why I'm here.
Yeah, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So obviously, like you said, we met you at NAMI Walks. Your team raised a lot of money for us. We can't thank you enough for that. And you shared that you were walking for your brother. So do you mind sharing that story a little bit more? And can you tell us more about your brother and what he was like?
Okay. So these are when the tears I'm sure are going to come.
That's totally fine.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so my brother, his name is, to me, he's DJ. He will always be DJ or Bub. But his name is Dennis Bates. He's a junior, so that's why we called him DJ. It's so crazy because he was such a guy, like a very quiet guy in school from a very, very young age. He was very just timid. And so he never spoke up and said, my name's DJ. And so everybody just called him Dennis. And I thought it was the weirdest thing ever that I'm like, what do you mean when somebody would call me, like, is Dennis there? And I'm like, yeah, my dad's here, but like, why are you trying to get him? As he got older, he kind of like found his place, with friends, and then he became Denny. So like a lot of people know him as different things. Again, he was born in 89, whatever number that makes you. I think we celebrated his 35th birthday in November. But I think that he showed signs of not having the most stable mental health early on. And I go back and forth with thinking like, okay, am I saying mental illness? Am I saying mental health? I know that when we did the obituary, I rewrote it like 3 times just to make sure, like, again, the stigma that's attached to it. Like, I don't want to offend anybody. I find it very hard to believe that there's people out there that don't have any sort of, that we're all battling something.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say it incorrectly, but I know that from a very young age, he was just sad, but he was very emotional. And I know that as a man, that is not something that you should have. They think that they shouldn't have. And it was very hard for him because he was very, very emotional, sensitive. He was just a sensitive guy. He was not perfect by any means. His emotions, the fact that he had these big emotions, when they were big, they were really big, got himself into a lot of trouble sometimes because he couldn't control those big emotions, especially at a younger age. But I think his first suicide attempt was either right at the end of high school or right after high school. And again, trigger warning, but my brother had hung himself, and he had 2 prior attempts of hanging himself. And my brother was not a small guy. He was like 6-something. He was a tall kid. But the first time he did it from the basement, and he was too tall. So thank God it didn't work. But just to know that, like, you were in so much pain at such a young age. And so he went through that. It had to have been 17 or 18. His 20s were really difficult. And his 30s not necessarily didn't get better, but I think as we age, we find a little bit more of a balance with our emotions. So he learned to handle emotions better, but this isn't something that you can handle. As far as his diagnosis, I know he had major depression. I know that he's had some like mandated therapy that he did years ago in his 20s, and they put him on like heavy duty antipsychotic, which really just pushed him away from the thought of getting help because it was like an injection, and he just was a walking zombie for quite a bit when he was on that. And a lot of times I think when you're seeing people being treated with mental illness, they like to throw medications at you. And that way you're not feeling as much. And then, so your options are be on all these medications, be safer, but not actually have a great quality of life, and trying to figure out how to balance that. So that was very difficult. I know I've called crisis numerous times for him. I know in his 20s I called crisis once for him, and they actually ended up arresting him. So, again, makes people not want to ask for help. So things got a little bit better. For a while, he would have really, really high highs, and when he was happy, he was in his own little fantasy world of happiness. Like, cloud 9, big smiles, super playful. But when he wasn't, it was the lowest of the low, and nobody could help him but himself. And by that, he had to take the options of help. I would look up counseling. I would look up therapy. I would offer to pay for it. Like, I will do it. You unfortunately have to put in the work. And then I don't know how much more you want me to go on this, but there were things that happened leading up to his actual suicide that really kind of pushed him over the edge. And I think that it is a big part of his story. And I debated on whether or not I was going to tell it.
You can share as much or as little as you want.
I want to share it because, again, you don't have to have a big life-changing moment to be suicidal by any means. But he had a big life-changing moment less than a month before he passed. Let me just say that before that, my brother has 2 children. He has 2 girls, Ava and Mia. And that is everything he loved in life. And I think that it made his depression worse, that he couldn't be the dad that he wanted to be because of his mental illness. He would have given an entire world for them. He also, the mother of his youngest daughter, has 2 other children, and he had a relationship with them as well. They hadn't been together all that long, but still, he cared. He really cared. He just wanted to do big things and good things for people. And he would give the last dollar that he had, probably because he knew that I would help make sure everything else was going to be okay. But he'd give his last dollar knowing that I would pick up the pieces if he thought that's what needed to take care of. Mm-hmm. So in the month before his passing, the actual day based on the death certificate is March 30th. With that being said, I believe from the police had told us they think that he passed the night before. But less than a month before that, he was supposed to have another child with the mother of his youngest daughter. And it was going to be his first son. Okay. I had to be honest again. My brother wasn't perfect. Nobody's perfect. But it wasn't a great situation. And, you know, I do believe that they had love for each other, but they were estranged for quite some time before that. And we got a phone call at I believe it was like February 29th, and it was like, there's no heartbeat with the baby. And I was like, okay, no matter what, that is the worst thing that anybody could endure. And that this was, I believe it was Thursday, and they were told that they were going to have to deliver him stillborn on Monday. Again, I'm just racking my brain. And there are so many things out there that we have as resources. Like there's you guys for NAMI for mental illness, and there's like Emma's Footprints, and like I reached out to Emma's Footprints, and like, what can I do to support them? Like I'm at a loss right now. Like what can I do? Long story short, that baby didn't exist.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And I had to be the one to tell my brother that baby didn't exist.
That's awful.
Yes. So I was terrified to tell him because I didn't want to set him over the edge. I FaceTimed him and I said, Bob, XYZ, this is what I've got. None of this adds up. He wasn't allowed to be at the delivery. He never saw any. He has nothing. There's nothing. To this day, there is nothing has ever been shown about this baby. To this day. So I just said very matter-of-factly, this is what I have, Deej. This is the evidence. I don't know what to tell you. And he was like, but gee, like, I don't understand. Like, I saw a picture. She showed me a picture. I'm like, well, send it to me. He's like, no, she didn't give it to me. She showed me this picture. And he had oxygen on his nose and he had things on his head. And I was like, Bob, listen to what you're saying. If the baby had no heartbeat on Thursday and it was delivered on Monday, they would not be doing any life-saving measures. Mm-hmm. Like, it got gruesome. I had to walk him through, like, this is what a baby would look like. This is, like, I'm a nurse. Like, this is,
yeah.
It got deep. It got really deep. But he was also then being told, like, how dare you not believe me? Mm. And so less than 30 days later, he took his life. And I got his phone afterwards, and I see that he had communication with that woman up until, it happened. But the big thing that I noticed is that he didn't call me, and he didn't call my mom. And when somebody is finally at that place that they're just done, they don't reach out for help. Mm-mm. Because normally he would reach out for help. He would reach out and say, I'm not okay. I can't do this anymore. He would just be screaming from the rooftops that he was not okay. But he was not okay. I saw that there's some videos on his phone of like a week or so before. And it's him holding a card with a ladybug on it. And he's talking to this ladybug as if it's the baby. And he's saying, like, it's okay, Bob, it's okay. And trying to get the ladybug to go out the window. Again, this is March, so it's still freezing. Mm-hmm. And so he was really tormented back and forth of, like, okay, am I grieving the loss of my son? Am I figuring out that I was just totally mentally and emotionally what is it going to look like moving forward? So it was just everything incapacitated him on top of that. And I think that maybe I lived in a place of no news is good news. And so, like, not hearing from him was like, he must be doing okay. And I had no idea that that meant that he was not okay. So I think that the big thing coming from that is that, like, I didn't make my brother depressed. Nobody made my brother depressed. My brother had multiple attempts. He had 2 other attempts prior to this. And who's to say he wouldn't have done it again in the future if this wasn't it? So I'm not saying that, like, this is fully responsible, but I am just saying that, like, we're all human beings. And we all have feelings and we all have emotions. So if you could just do anything, is just to live your day wanting to be a better human being and wanting to make another person feel better. Again, this was very hard for me to decide whether or not I was going to tell this part of the story. Because I haven't even brought it up since after he died. Because I know that I'm not going to get what I want out of it. What could I actually even want? I don't even know what I would want out of it. But I know that one of the things that, like, he had written a suicide note less than a month before he died that I found on his phone. And in it, all it said, like, the premise that I got from it was, like, tell my babies I love them. And that I tried my hardest. And so I know that the thing that he would want the most is just to make sure that his girls are okay. And so for me to bring this up potentially jeopardizes the relationship that I could have with my niece. But it's also so very important because, again, if it maybe makes one person think about not doing something like that to another person, I think it's just a huge part of his story that is really just never got to be told.
Thank you for feeling comfortable enough to tell us. We really appreciate that. Yeah. It is very important. And it's a part of what happened. It's a part of him. So I do think it's important. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. It's definitely hard in that situation, but we appreciate it. You know, leading up to it, was there any drastic changes in, you know, maybe the way he was acting or things he was saying or anything like that leading up to his suicide?
I think that drastic, the unfortunate part, again, is he's dealt with this for so many years. And when the lows were low, and he was very low. So nothing that was, I don't know how to even say it, like, alarms were going off. We knew he was not okay. But it wasn't something that we hadn't seen before.
It wasn't, like, out of the ordinary.
No, DJs had lows in the low and said he's not okay, says he doesn't want to be here, says he just can't do this anymore. And, you know, again, like I said, I've called crisis numerous times, but they have to pick up. Not crisis. Crisis will always pick up. Crisis will always listen. I will give the phone number. But if the other person doesn't answer the phone, crisis can't provide that service. So I could only do so much at that point. And then also, again, like I said, I've had it to where, like, no, I really think he's not okay. You have to send somebody out there. And one time they arrested him. So he will never answer the door again. You know what I mean? So the leading up to it, I guess now thinking about it, I would say the calmness. When I FaceTimed him, and at first, like I said, I didn't even bring it up. I don't even remember what I was saying. We were talking, and he was like, gee, just tell me, because I was frustrated. Because he had said, hey, you didn't tell anybody, or you didn't post it on social media, did you? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, because her grandma's wanting to know or asking about it and how, like, she shouldn't know or something. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't another complex lie on top of it. And at that point, I was just going to scream at the top of my lungs. So I just faced him. I'm like, what the F are you talking about right now, Deej? And I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this. Like, I just emotionally, I can't be involved in this. It's very, very toxic. And he's like, what is going on? And I was like, Deej, I can't do that to you. And he was just so calm. Like, I felt like I was the irrational one. And I've always been big sister / mom for him. So, like, to see him just have a conversation, I don't even think he cried. So, like, to me, I guess that would be a big sign. You would think the opposite. Like, are they having a big breakdown and, you know, threatening to kill themselves? Did he do that in the months, you know, leading up? Obviously, 100% he did. But during our phone calls, during our FaceTimes, and we had probably 2 or 3, he was very kind of stoic, like taking in everything I have to say, asking questions, but no emotion. And so maybe that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And for us, when my straw was broken, I got extra emotions. And when his straw was broken, because he already had so many emotions, maybe he just didn't have any more emotions.
Right.
A lot of the time, oddly enough, when people are contemplating suicide and they finally come to the decision, they almost feel like a sense of peace with it, which is sad, but
so crazy.
It's a reality that they just, like, they've decided that that's how they want to handle it, and so they don't bring it up. They do feel calm. So he very well could have felt calm and felt at peace with it. But
I do remember, like, I don't know if it was less than a week after he died. I mean, my best friend lives in Charlotte, and she was here within hours. Like, I don't even think I was, like, out of the shower for the night. Like, we got the phone call. My mom had called, and we had to go to his apartment. And we were there. The police were still there, and, like, all of that. But I remember wanting to know, was he in pain? What the mode of his suicide? What was that like? What did he feel? And I remember texting it to a friend, to my best friend. So maybe she was gone already, and she was like, "Don't do that now. If you still want to do that at a later time, we will do that together," and look that up. But when I went and got his cell phone from the police station, the police officer said, from what I saw on the body cam, he knew what he was doing, he did it with intention, and he went peacefully. So I do believe that. It was not something that he couldn't have taken back. He could have stood up. He could have taken it back, and he did not want to take it back. And oddly enough, I find peace in that.
I was just going to ask if you did.
I do. And I think that for somebody to get to that point, and I know that people have a lot of feelings about suicide, and it's selfish. And yes, in that sense, it impacts a lot of people. So I don't want to say it's selfish. I say it impacts a lot of people, because it does. I will never be the same. My daughter was laying in bed with me, and she could hear my husband. I had my phone on Do Not Disturb because I had just had surgery, and I do way too much and couldn't get my drain out because I was doing way too much. So I said, okay, I'm going to lay flat. It was Easter weekend. I'm going to lay flat. I'm going to turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. I am a nurse at the local juvenile detention center, so I'm on call 24/7. So it was the only thing that could come through was the detention center. And I missed calls from my mom. So she called my husband, and he's walking upstairs, and he's like, he sounds like frustrated. I'm like, what is he yelling about? And then you just hear my mom screaming. And my kid and I are laying in there. So, like, yes, we were all impacted, and we will never be the same. But for you to get to a place that is your peace, the amount of pain you have to be feeling, because I know my brother loves us. I was looking at my messages before I came in, like, he loved hard. to know that he had to make that decision, that he thought that was best for everybody, for his kids, for everybody, that was not about selfishness. That was not about, I'm going to end my pain and you guys suffer the rest of your life. That was, he thought this was the best option for everybody involved. So I find peace in knowing that he didn't struggle. It hurts my heart to know that he went by himself. I honestly think that if he would have been able to communicate it to me that this was for real and this is where he was, I want to say that I wouldn't try to have got him help, but I wish I could have just sat there and held his hand and just let him know that, like, you are loved and it's okay. And I tell people all the time, they probably look at me like I'm crazy. Like I said, my brother is like my kid, my first kid. I would not bring him back. I would not bring him back. And the reason why I would not bring him back is that I can't fix his pain. There is no cure for mental illness. I couldn't change the surroundings that he was a part of in that relationship, and that was the mother of his child, so that was going to be something that was going to be there for life. So I would not bring him back, and that in itself is just so incredibly hard to admit.
And it's okay to feel those feelings. I mean, no feeling is a wrong feeling. That's how you feel inside, and it's absolutely okay. Do you think that there are resources out there maybe that you didn't know about at the time, or maybe your brother didn't know about the time, that could have possibly, helped change the outcome or helped your family through the grieving process or anything like that?
I think that there are resources out there, and I'm a very resourceful person. So that was March. The August before that, we had some things go on in our family, and my husband actually, he did not attempt to take his life, but he was at that place of he was going to take his life, and I had to file a missing persons report. So when I've got in contact with him after 3 days, he had been staying in his car for 3 days. Just honestly going through the thoughts in his brain of how he could just, and similarly to my brother, he is always just not, he lives the days waiting for the last day to be over. And he's not suicidal, but he's just not happy and I don't know if you've ever experienced true happiness. And so when the police helped me locate him for the first time in his life, he was like, I'm not okay and I want help. And because, again, I'm a nurse and I work at the juvenile detention center and shelter, we experience a lot of things. And I know you guys do work with us. I was like, I'm going to find the best option for him. He's admitting that he needs help and he wants help, and I want to set him up for success. I spent so much time and effort trying to find the right thing. I looked in other cities. I looked like, how can I pay for like top of the line? And I called people that I knew, like, what are your thoughts, XYZ, instead of, just going to the hospitals here. Like, what are the options? With that being said, and this could just be my ignorance, I don't think that what we have available here in Erie is the greatest options. And not because of anybody's lack of trying, but I think it's spread so thin. And so it's very hard to get the help that you want. And I know that one things that we ended up doing instead of going to the hospital was to Safe Harbor has the crisis unit, and it's like a 5-day, and you go directly there. And we did that, and he ended up checking himself out within 24 hours. And it's, again, the premise of the program, I'm sure, is great because I did the research, but it was spread so thin, the staffing spread thin, and there are people that unfortunately abuse the system to their benefit, which then the people that do need that system fall through the cracks of it. And I think that was so. Prior to DJ's passing, I didn't feel confident in what we had here. I did recommend, there was it's on, I think, West 8th Street, some counselors or therapists. I'm not sure exactly what their credentials are, but they work with everybody. I can't think of what it is, but it's like they have the LGBTQ, like they have it all, and they have like they work with men.
Journey?
Yes.
Journey to a
Trauma-Informed Life. Yes. And I sent the link to my brother before, and I heard good things. And my brother is tatted up, face tattoos, everything. And so he was always like, thought people would look down on him. I'm like, Deej, like the counselors have tattoos. Like, but also, Deej, it's 2024. Like nobody really cares about tattoos anymore. Yeah, it's not that real. But yeah. But, you know, like I really tried to put effort into what are the resources. And I know for myself, just trying to get back into therapy, like the mental health, it's a game, unfortunately, you have to play of like, I got to try this. And does it work? And that's with medications. And that's also with the right counselors and the right therapists. It's not always going to be the first time this works. I do know that there's gene site testing out there. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that.
Oh, no.
So I did that quite a few years ago. I thought I had anxiety, like severe anxiety. And the testing is not to diagnose you, but it turns out that with my therapist, we were discussing, maybe I have ADHD. And, you know, in women, it presents differently. And so I reached out to my PCP, and he was like, you know, there's this new genetic testing for psychotropic medications. So you know, will this work? Do you need a lower dose? Do you need a higher dose? Is an SSRI for you? You know, if you're doing, you know, medications for ADHD, is it amphetamine based or do you need the methylphenidate based? Like those types. And it goes through all of them. It has anti-anxiety medications. It has the antidepressants. It has antipsychotics. And it will tell you, you know, again, this probably won't work for you at all, or you're going to need a lower dose, or you're going to need a higher dose based on your genetics.
Wow.
So I was blessed enough to have a doctor that I have a great relationship with, and who, you know, listens to my suggestions and trusts me, and then to use that to say, okay, so I am one that methylphenidates would not work for me based on genetics. So we did Adderall, generic Adderall. My first dose of medication was like night and day. Night and day. And I talked to my therapist after, and she was like, I had just graduated with my master's a month before. And she's like, could you imagine how much easier your life would have been if you would have known about this? Because at that time I was in my 30s. Like, geez Louise. So I do think that there are resources out there. It's just a matter of figuring out. So that gene site, I tell everybody about it because the medications, psychotropic medications, it is a guessing game of what works.
I love that you said that, because I feel like a lot of times individuals might try therapy or might try a certain medication and it doesn't work, and then they kind of give up. It's all about that game, like you said.
A lot of trial and error.
Exactly. Sometimes you might not click with the right therapist. It takes time with those things. So I'm glad you brought that up.
But it also takes it's draining. It is so draining for the person to go through that of like, okay, so I'm going to relive my trauma, or, you know, put it all out there on the table, and I got nowhere. So to want to keep going, that's the problem.
Like it's like starting from the beginning over and
every
over.
time.
That's understandable.
That is draining.
Yeah. So why do you think men's health is still, I know we kind of touched briefly on it, you know, there's still that stigma. Why do you think there's such a, you know, let me restart.
No, you're good.
I was like, you know.
You're the editor, so.
You get it. Why do you think that men's mental health is such a difficult topic to discuss still to this day. I know we briefly touched on that subject earlier.
I also agree that, like, that to me, that is baffling. Like, the way you said it is, like, I can tell you think that is baffling.
Yeah.
Because it's 2025. We know everybody has emotions. We know that gender roles are totally different than what they used to be. Like, we are all essentially doing the same thing, and that is just trying to succeed in life. So the fact that it is still put on men out there that they shouldn't have feelings and they shouldn't have emotions. I have a friend, and he talks about it for his kids. Like, he has a son, and he's like, I want my son to know that emotions matter and blah, blah, blah. But then he doesn't allow himself to have the emotions. And I asked that question, like, why? Like, why are you promoting it for your own kid, but you don't believe it for yourself? And I don't know if it's something that's just ingrained with us, and, like, as generations keep going on, we'll just get better with it, and we're just not quite there yet. But I think it's just that old school gender role of, like, you're the man and you have to be strong and you have to provide and blah, 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 blah. And if you're having emotions, you can't do that. So then nobody wants to ask for help. And then, but you're not, let's be real, if you're not asking for the help, you're not being the strong man and you're not providing. You know what I mean? You're struggling.
Asking for help is strength.
Yeah.
A lot of strength.
100%.
A lot of strength.
You might be struggling and you think you're doing a great job of masking it. More than likely you're not. And so your family's feeling that impact. I know that, like, I would have to tell my brother, and it was very difficult. And I just recently did heavy trauma therapy to get over that lump in my throat every time I thought about it. But I had to put boundaries up with my brother in the sense of, Deej, I've given you, like, all the resources that I have at my hands to go ahead and try and make that step to get the help. But I'm a control freak. And if I can't make you better, it sends me in a spiral. And it's my own PTSD and it's my own trauma. So, like, I could line it all up for you, but if you didn't take that step, I'm back here just suffering. Like, and he would be like, I want to be able to vent to you. And I was like, I understand, Bob, but I can't be that person for you. I can't, because it's just, after 20 some years of it weighs so heavy. It triggers me so hard. But I will point you in every direction. I will pay for it. I will drive you there. I will, whatever you need. I just can't be that person because I know that I'm not going to make you better. You telling me that isn't going to make me better. It's actually just going to it's not going to make you better. It's not going to make me better. It's actually going to make me worse. You might feel slightly better just saying the words, but in the end, it's not making you better. And so that was a very, very difficult thing for me to have to come to terms with, of, like, I'm never going to get that chance to be that person for him. And I put that boundary up to protect myself because I have to be healthy and I have to be a mom and I have to be a person. But so I think that, with that being said, so when men think that, like, the weak thing is to get the help, no, that's really the strength, because you're setting yourself up for success. You continuing to struggle is actually just crippling those around you. Like, we want the help. We want you to get help. And we know that it's really difficult to keep going when, I tried. Because I was blessed enough that when my husband left crisis after that day, he basically took 5 months, like, off work. He would not go back to any sort of therapy. That was it. He turned his back. I was blessed enough in the fact that, like, whatever he did worked for him. And it's been 1.5 years and he's okay. And I'm not concerned about him in that sense at all anymore. But that's not the case for everybody. So those people that, like him, after having that bad experience, they're never going to do it again. How are they going to get the help? And how do we get it across to them that there is actual help? How do we get people to believe that? Because man and woman putting that guard down to make that leap, and that leap, you fall flat on your face.
Yeah. I think it's going back to that theory that we discuss a lot in the office, you know, about the face masks on the airplanes. They tell you have to help yourself first to be able to help others. And I think at the end of the day, mental health is such a challenging and difficult thing to understand, but it's ultimately the same thing. You can't help others unless you're helping yourself. How do you think that our community, at least here locally in Erie, can better support, you know, men in getting the help that they need and getting the word out there?
So I love crisis, and I love the 988, right? Is that what it is? 988? Yeah. Okay. But ultimately, I think that the people that use that number, and I don't know the stats, so I could be completely off. I just know that, like, when I used it, my brother never called that number himself. I called it for him. So I think finding a way to get awareness to men of what happens after you call that. What's next? Because I kept saying, Deej, crisis will at least guide you of, like, what are our options? Like, I literally have all this in messages over and over and over again. And I was like, they know these answers that I don't know. I don't know who's the best to go or what would be the best route to do this. Or, you know, I can give you suggestions and I can do my own research, but, like, that's what their job is. So I think that letting them know what happens after, because I don't think I even know. Like, okay, so if I call 988 and I disclose that I don't feel safe or I'm just really depressed and XYZ, is it just talk? Am I just talking to somebody? Or I know that they do follow-ups. I know that because he would not answer their phone calls. So they would then call me back and be like, we can't get a hold of him. Day 3, is he still okay? And I was like, I would give them my update. But, like, what happens next for them? And I think that is, maybe that would make somebody call to know, like, okay, I'm going to call crisis and I'm not going to just cry to a stranger. I'm going to have an end game. There's going to be some sort of next step, resolution, game plan to make me feel better, to make me know how to treat this. Because, again, it's something that needs to be treated. It is not going to go away. It is just like having a heart condition or, you know, diabetes. Like, you're going to have to manage this your whole life. And I know that is also a problem, is, like, when they do start to manage it and then they start to feel better. And then they're like, I don't need this anymore. And having to, like, keep that going.
Yeah. That's a big cycle. Yeah. I want this in the episode, so I'm going to look up, like, if you did a 302 or if you...
I know we're going to do a crisis episode, right? Like,
yeah.
what to do in a crisis.
I definitely want to mention
that'll
it
definitely be, yeah, of course, but that'll definitely be good to talk about. Sorry.
No. I'm totally okay with this. Because I know that his first suicide attempt, he was 302'd. Because I called 911 to get him. Like, I just need to make sure he was actually okay as well, medically. And he did stay in the hospital. Off the top of my head, I think that was the only time he did inpatient. And I can't remember if it was at Mill Creek or St. Vincent. But I know that another concern for men is 302, and that it takes away your rights, and that you can't ever own a gun, or you can't, you know, those, so on and so forth. So the stigma that's attached to that. Yeah. Would my brother have ever actually owned a gun? Probably not. But just the thought of, like, taking away that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think my brother would ever have owned a gun. Maybe not. Maybe one day legally he would try to get a gun. I don't know. But that was something that he was like, no, and then I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm like, okay, but this is, you got to, you know, check and balance here.
Give and take here.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you call 988, you'll get with a counselor who can activate mobile mental health crisis team that will come to you depending on like what it is you're needing. They can provide therapeutic interventions, which is kind of just talking to you. So if it's not like an immediate need help right now, I'm actively trying to end my life, they'll talk to you. Same on that note, they can also refer you to inpatient, outpatient, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
So 988 gets you connected to your local. So one of our staff members, she is a 988.
Oh, cool.
Not caller. What's the other word?
Operator?
Operator. Yeah. So she takes the calls. She talks to them. She kind of reads the situation, sees if they're in immediate danger, and then can go from there. And because she's local, they can refer based on like the area code on the phone number. So she can get them to the resources that are closest to them. And then call like local police or whoever to go out and help them. Local crisis.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happens if you call 988. I would assume, we know 988 because of her, so I would assume crisis would be the same.
So I know with crisis, because we use crisis a lot where I work, we call, give them the update as to what's been going on and the severity of the situation at hand. And sometimes it'll be like, oh, we'll just chat with them on the phone and give them, let them get things off their chest and so on and so forth. Or we're going to come out and we'll evaluate and then petition, start the 302 petition. One thing, though, I have seen way more times than I think should ever be seen is that crisis will do a 302 petition and the hospital will decline it.
Oh.
A lot. A lot. And I've seen it with active injuries and still declining the 302.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I think that's another hurdle to jump through, especially with it being somebody that's your name's known in the system. So the stigma, unfortunately, different type, is attached to you.
Yeah.
So when they see your name, they're not really treating it with all seriousness. And so that's definitely another hurdle to jump through. Sometimes I want to just throw myself into the world of this and try and come up with the answers for everybody because it's just broken. It's very broken.
It's really hard because I feel like a lot of, at least in Erie, like you said, short-staffed. So while it could be a very serious situation, there could be another person who has a way more serious situation. And if they have one bed, they have to take them more serious. So it's really, really hard. I feel almost, I don't want to say sorry, I guess empathy or sympathy, whichever, that they even have to make that decision because I can't imagine it coming lightly. That has to be a really hard thing to like, who needs it more. Who gets it. So that's hard. But it's just really hard too because not everyone can afford to like go to Pittsburgh for care. So if you have just Erie resources, like that's all you have to choose from. It's just hard. The whole game is hard.
It is hard. And I think in any field, medical, any field, you're going to have amazing people and you're going to have people that just aren't as amazing. Yeah. So by no way am I trying to deter somebody from getting help. No. But I do know that I did the research on, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. Like, where can I go? I will figure it out. And one thing I came to the realization is, so yes, we're spread very thin here in Erie. If I'm going to go to a bigger city that have more people, they're going to be spread just as thin, if not even more. Yeah. And I was like, okay, so that might not be the best idea. Yeah. Because I really thought, go to the bigger hospitals down in Pittsburgh or go to Cleveland Clinic or things like, they're going to have more doctors, but they're definitely going to have more people. So I was like, okay, that's scary.
Bigger city, more mental health crises.
I know.
Same as resources.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is very hard.
There's not another word. It's just hard.
No. And I have another brother and he's older. And he also has battled the mental illness game I think, since he was a teenager. And he has bipolar. I believe he has schizophrenia as well. I don't want to say that he chooses to be homeless, but he kind of chooses to be
Some
homeless.
people do.
Yeah. And he doesn't live in Erie. He lives in Texas. But he'll make his way up here every couple of years. And somehow it's like in the wintertime. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You're going the wrong direction for the winter. But I know that, like, he has tried to get help and keeping the consistency of, getting the help and insurance. That's another thing, is especially for like a grown man to have insurance. The moment you have any sort of income, that's gone. But your income's not high enough to support you, or you're not a job that has offering insurance. So, like, how do you maintain your medications?
Yeah. We have heard that a lot as a barrier for individuals, is that income. We do get calls a lot as well. People asking, I've tried this place, but they don't accept my insurance, or I've tried this, but they don't accept my insurance. But unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, like, how do you get the scripts if you can't get to the doctor? And then I don't know how, like, financing with, like, Safe Harbor or Stairways works. I'm sure that there's some sort of program, but because it's a program, you have to wait until that, it's your time until there's a slot. I do know that once you get a script or you get help, I have a kid that I was filling a script for today. He didn't have insurance right now in the system, and the pharmacies develop a relationship with your pharmacy. Develop a relationship with your pharmacist by name, just letting them know. They know things that we don't know. And so, like, I'm sure everybody's heard of, like, GoodRx, and you can like look it up and find, like, what's the cheapest. So it's like, okay, so you don't have insurance, there's a discount card that you can, the pharmacy is familiar with, and so the Prozac was $5. If you don't have that relation with your pharmacist and you just have that sent in, sometimes they'll just be like, oh, $650, and you're like, well, I can't pay for that, and you walk away not knowing that there are other options out there. And that doesn't apply to every drug, because there are drugs that are quite expensive even with copays. But I think that is also a resource, is knowing things, knowing who to ask, and or how to ask for it.
Absolutely.
I want to look up, because I just want to get all the facts right for this, and you can cut me looking out. But I want to look up, like, med management, and if there's any kind of, because you can get, like, a caseworker, what am I trying to say?
I do believe that this online game that we now have, that Him and Her, like the websites,
I have seen
is
that,
actually amazing.
I've
Is it
actually
going
never
to
looked into
properly
that.
diagnose everybody? Probably not. But if it's an option to at least try something, and you can get it, like, right away, I think that, yes.
I've seen commercials for that, for sure. Yeah.
And I think a friend of mine's husband did his through Hims or whatever it is. Because, again, just finding the right person and not even knowing who to call. Again, I have an amazing PCP. So, like, he works with me and will tell me, like, I don't think I can write for this type of drug, but this is who you should go to. A lot of people don't even have that. So how do you know who to even call to get the right right drug?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's been a lot of times we tell people, like, PCP is probably the best place to start, because you already have that relationship to ask where to go and who to talk to. But sometimes, to your point, you might not have that relationship with your PCP.
And even scheduling out, like, with your PCP, you called to get, like, an acute visit, and they're like, he'll see you in 3 months. I'm like, all right, well, that'll be helpful. And I probably feel better in 3 months, and now I don't want to come to the appointment.
Yeah, that's actually happened a lot. Dermatologists, we were talking about that. It was like a year out to schedule, but at least, like, that's not as...
Well, no, during COVID, right after COVID, there was, like, a spot on my back, and I called all the dermatologists here in Erie, and they're like, we're not accepting patients, or we are not scheduling for a year and a half. so that's when like all of like the E stuff started. And so they had eDerm on my UPMC app. And so I did it. I ended up having skin cancer on my back.
Oh, wow.
So thank gosh. I mean, it was just basal cell, so they removed it and I'm good. But like the thought that I was going to go a year and a half before I could get treated here.
That is scary. Yeah. Oh, wow.
So, Erie County Care Management. Have you looked into them?
Yes. So I know people that work there.
Yeah, they do homeless persons behavioral health. So I'm assuming it doesn't give too much information on their website. You have to request info. I'm assuming since it's for homeless individuals that they would have some kind of like payment options or like some kind of cost effectiveness to them. And they also have their Shelter Plus Care program, and it's designed to help participants increase their income while looking for a stable living situation. And it gives them the ability to work in specific treatment programs while doing that. So it like helps you kind of do all three.
Yeah. So you can cut this part out. But again, the problem with that, because I unfortunately know people, ECCM, amazing. Amazing. But there are people that are taking advantage of it that should not be. And again, because it's like, I don't know who funds this, but it is, you got to wait in line. So you're waiting in line behind people. So I know that like we fostered some kids like 2 years ago, and I know that the mom was working with ECCM, but she was basically just like, okay, well, if you're not going to give me a place to stay, I'm going to go 302 myself or 201 myself. And then like, you know what I mean? So it's just so broken in that sense of like, how do they triage? How do they know who needs it, who doesn't?
Yep.
And I don't know if there's an answer for that. And that's the way I'm like, you could take this out, because I don't want to ever deliver a sign that there is no hope, because there is definitely hope. We just have to like go through the forest to get there, because it is very, very difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why
good to know, though.
I said with my brother, like, if I brought him back, I would bring him back to continue suffering. I don't have an answer. I couldn't end it, you know, even if I got him in the hospital. So I got him in the hospital for 3 days. Then what?
Yeah.
And that is awful to think about that. Like, that's where we are in life. But like I said, at the NAMI walk, to see the resource in the tables, and especially the ones, I loved the ones for like geared towards the kids. And I know that I think Clarion Psych was there. Like, there's apps, there's things that we just don't really know, and you wouldn't even know to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. We're having our NAMI walks again this year.
I got the email
September
14th. Yes.
And I think Clarion already.
Yeah, they're going to be there again.
Are they?
Yeah. There's like so many online options now. There's like BetterHelp, which I think is national.
I have that app on my phone, which is actually good.
They're good. There's also Charlie Health, which I think is based out of Pittsburgh. We did an interview with Amanda Ross, who works at Charlie Health, and they're completely online as well, so you can get a therapist there. So there's a lot of online options, which are like way more accessible.
Charlie Health works on like there was some sort of like funding or something, because I remember talking to them at the table at the event.
Yeah.
And there is like options. But again, if people don't know that.
Yeah.
So I think one of the smallest things I could do is just kind of like scream NAMI everywhere I go, because you have resources if people wanted to look into it. And a lot of times people might just go to the, mental health association and start there. Nothing against them. I've never looked at their stuff by any means, but it's just like knowing where to go. Clearly somebody said the word NAMI to me one time, and that's why when I wrote the obituary, I was like, put that in there. I honestly didn't know what it stood for at the time. I had to look it up.
Hey, it's okay. At least you say no.
Yeah.
We have people say like NAMI. What else have we gotten?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of
different
things.
variations.
I also think ruins it now is that it's very rare that we're watching live TV or listening to live radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Spotify, Netflix, all of that. Now all of a sudden they're making us have commercials, but for the most part, it's not local commercials.
Yeah.
So, like, getting any local advertisement out,
Yeah.
I mean, I think social media is really the only way to do that in hopes that people are going to share it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've been trying to cover all our bases just to reach the different demographics. So we do have like the television commercials, which have been good so far. We do the Facebook advertising for our events. What else do we do?
We're on the radio.
Yeah, the radio, the
Billboards.
podcast, billboards. Yeah.
Well, you guys did like Seawolves. I know I saw at a lot of the Seawolves games, you guys were down there, or they at least talked about you, and you had a couple of big events over the summer there. So yeah, just getting that name out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what our main goal, since we don't do any kind of treatment. We do non-clinical, so we do a lot of peer support groups, things like that. But then we also do a lot of education and advocacy. So we're trying to get into as many places as humanly possible. So we did like presentations at banks, and we've trained the entire Mill Creek Police Department in mental health first aid, and we've trained the Erie Police Department in mental health, and like them taking care of themselves, but then actually what to do in a crisis situation rather than like taking them to the prison, maybe taking them to like the CRU or something like that. So we're trying to get in as many places as humanly possible, and so I think honestly the best way to kind of combat the like what's next is just to keep talking about it.
100%.
So that's what we're doing. That's our goal. That's also really the main goal of this podcast is to keep it talking and to spread it, because anyone can listen to this. It's free on YouTube and whatever. So I think that's what we do, is we don't shut up.
Yeah, don't give up. Don't give up. That's I mean, sometimes life is very hard in 2025, and just looking at things, and as a parent just saying, if you don't stop trying to be better and you keep pushing forward, and that's all we can ask for everybody to do. So just don't give up. It's not hopeless. I think one of the big things that I like to do, and I did before, so I work again at with the juvenile detention center and the shelter there with the kids, but I also have a career in clinical research. And people are like, well, why do you do both? And I do it because I like to make an impact. And I think now, especially after losing my brother, I'm just telling every kid that they matter. Like, you matter, and what you're feeling right now matters, but what you're feeling right now is what you're feeling right now. And tomorrow is going to be a different day.
Yep.
And especially these kids, because they're little and they have their whole life in front of them. And unfortunately, yes, mental illness is a part of what they're feeling and what they're enduring, but also it's life has already beaten them so much.
They were dealt with terrible hand.
Yes. And so it's really hard for them to feel like that they actually do matter, because if they did, they wouldn't be where they're at in their head. You know what I mean? Like, and to tell them that, like, you do. You matter. Your life matters. You're important. You're going to make a difference. You can do whatever you want. This is just what you're feeling right now. And you might still feel this tomorrow, but, like, a week from now is going to be a better day. Like, just keep going. Keep pushing forward, because people will miss you when you're gone. You may think that nobody's going to care. I think 100% somebody's going to miss you, and that you're worth it.
Yeah.
100%.
No, I agree. I had a question. Now I lost it. I do that a lot.
I'm trying to see what else we could ask you from here. I feel like we need to ask her Wendy's.
Yeah. I apologize about the email, by the way.
What email?
She our boss
replied
replied all.
Oh,
and added in some.
the extra. She's
like,
this is great, and I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I was like, she meant to send it to us.
Oh,
to like,
yeah,
hey, this is something else.
Yeah, I like
she
it.
gives us feedback on everything. And I was like, oh, she replied all.
You know what I was most concerned about? Pronouncing your name. I was like, shit, I don't want to have to ask for her. So when I got the options, when I called, and it was like, press 3, and then it said your name, I'm like, yes. Yep. So I don't even have to ask for the extension. It's going to just send me there. Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's totally good. But I feel like we covered most of them, though.
I think the only thing that I would want is to somehow bring it full circle, because I don't want to end or like for somebody to take away from this that, like, the system's broken and it fucking sucks. Because it does. But it's not hopeless.
Let me think. Okay. In your experience as a nurse and doing the job you do with the kids and with your brother and even both your brothers, what are things you've seen that work that you want people to utilize more, regardless of like wait lists or things?
Yeah. So I think that even the things I've learned since the passing of DJ would be those online. There's tons of apps. There's tons of online, like at your fingertips. You can reach out to somebody. Is that meaning that at your fingertips you're going to be miraculously healed? No, but it is a starting point, and it is literally at your fingertips. Like, the world is right there. All you have to do is, like, make that effort. Even if you're doing it from fetal position on the ground, make the effort. Because I just need everybody to know that, like, you do matter and you are worth it. No matter what you've done wrong in your life, no matter what you have failed at, what you think that you know, you're worth, your life matters, and you not being here would impact somebody. And
Well said,
just stay and call somebody.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great.
So for individuals listening, as someone who has lost a loved one to suicide, what is a message that you have to family members of individuals who might be suffering with mental health challenges, and to the individuals themselves who are suffering with mental health challenges? What's a message that you have for them?
I think to the individuals that are suffering, to forgive us as your family, because we know that what you're feeling is true, and what we do or how we act sometimes or how we react to that is us not knowing how to process our emotions and not knowing how to, you know, we feel helpless and how we can't help you. I can't fix this for you. Like, it doesn't mean that you're not loved. So don't think that. Just because you are seeing us, you would rather us act in a different way, or you wanted a different response from us. Just because you did not get the response that you wanted from us, don't give up on us, because we love you and you do matter. I think for the people that have lost somebody to suicide, pot calling kettle black, because I should be doing more for myself.
It's easier said than done.
Yes. I can't believe that it's going to be a year next year. And I've said that I'm going to go to your guys' Thursday night groups since the day my brother died. I have not made it there. In fairness, I am a busy person and we have softball on Thursday nights. I coach my daughter's softball team. But I've been trying to encourage my mom to also come. And I looked at your website, and I think the lady that leads the group also has experienced something similar with a family member. I'm not sure if it was actually a passing, but just, you know, having a resource and having somebody that, like, knows what you're going through. And also not even just to, like, yes, for the camaraderie and just to have that partnership, but also they know things that you might not know.
Exactly.
So using that, I also keep saying that, and I made the call, just haven't been there yet, to what is the program here in Erie for children that have lost a loved one?
Caring Place.
Yes.
Caring Place, yeah.
So I did make a phone call to do that. And again, it's just aligning all the ducks with everybody's schedule to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I think that is so important, especially for kids, to experience such a loss at such a young age.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is the first time I don't have a lot of family, so this is the first time I've ever experienced loss of my family. Obviously, it was a very, very tough one, but to have that at such a young age, and I think that I've heard amazing things about the Caring Place.
Yeah.
And
great.
so I do need to just get us there. One thing that people have said, and this is why it's nice to talk to people who've been through what you've been through, is that it's fine. When you get there, you get there.
Yeah,
So,
there's not
like,
a timeline.
Yes. So I'm really bad about making myself feel guilty about not doing things. And they said, when you are there, you're there. So don't feel guilty, but I think finding people to talk to and finding people that have been through what you've been through. So I do recommend your guys' Thursday night group. Haven't been there yet. I'll see you after softball.
No worries. Like you said, at your own time. I mean, each person's timeline is different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Our group, if anyone wants to go, Thursdays, 6 p.m. It's led by Sharon, who has experienced loss. She's experienced mental health challenges. She's experienced substance misuse. So she has like all the knowledge in the world. She's really great. I can't recommend that group enough. And we get such good feedback from them too. And like you said, you get to learn things that they're doing to help themselves cope that you may not have thought of, or how they're currently helping a family member.
Yeah.
So like you just learn a lot.
So
it's
it's not necessarily like about grief or like I lost somebody, but there's people that are actively still fighting that fight with their family members. So like, what can I do to help you, or even just like take a load off, because it is a constant. I mean, I think one of the things that my mom hit her the most is to not have the chaos anymore, because it was always not knowing what's going on, not knowing when the phone rang, or what mood he was going to be in, or how was he feeling, or it was always something. So that dependency, that codependency, to have it just go gone, was a shock to her system.
Silence is deafening.
100%. Yeah.
I just want to clarify, our Thursday night group is the family support group.
Family support group.
And then Wednesday nights is peer support groups, which is if you are suffering with mental health challenges, you can go to that group.
You also don't need a formal diagnosis.
Yeah.
You could just be like,
I know
sad.
I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that there's something up.
And everything we do is free and confidential. We don't need insurance. We just need a way to contact you and your name.
We don't even need your last name.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I think that is a good for people that are like, I know I'm not okay, but to like actually put themselves out there. They're not having to fully like,
we don't
you don't
have,
need
like,
my social, you don't need my email, you don't need my
have
phone,
anything.
you don't need to know where I
Nothing.
work, nothing. Like I can just come here and fly on the radar. I think also Erie being a small city, kind of, you never know who you're going to run into.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that makes it that way. But I think in these groups, there's mutual respect because they are feeling, or they have felt, what you're feeling right now.
Yeah. The family support is really great and really supportive, and they've all been through a lot, so they can come with experience. So I recommend it to anyone that needs it.
Absolutely. I agree.
But yeah.
What are your guys' suggestions or maybe wishes from those that are in my situation that want to do more, to give back, to spread the awareness, to, make everything keep pushing forward on the path to finding the answers for everybody or getting hope?
I would say don't stop talking about it.
Yeah, literally don't shut up.
Yeah, advocate for it, because I think we need more of that, where people are talking openly about what's going on to them or what their loved one or whatever it may be, but talking about it, because that's the whole point of our podcast too, is that stigma is unfortunately still around, where people are afraid to talk about it. So I think hearing your story, which again, we really appreciate you being vulnerable and coming here today and talking about your experience, because I feel like some people will make that connection maybe in themselves or their loved one and realize it's okay to talk about it and see maybe what you're going through as a family member, and how tough it is, and kind of, I don't want to say having a wake-up call, but in a sense of, there's other options out there that could help you and prevent you from maybe, committing suicide or something.
And I think that a lot of times, like, I fill awkward silence. Like, I can't just... So I will never not talk about my brother, and I will never, like, I have no shame in that my brother committed suicide at all.
There shouldn't be.
And so, like, when we wrote the obituary, my friends sat down and I said, this is what I needed to say, and they put it together eloquently. Like, he loved so hard, unfortunately had a hard time loving himself as much as he loved others. And, you know, he fought for years, and he just couldn't fight anymore. And so, like, I tell people, you know, I'll just bring up randomly whatever we're talking about, and it'll come up in conversation. And I feel like people are, like, taken back and shocked, and they don't know what to say to me. And they're like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, 100%. But that is not the intention. Like, my brother lived. My brother died. He still matters in his death. Like, I will always tell his story. I will always just talk about him. Like, I think the more you do that, more people will get comfortable with it, because people are very uncomfortable. Like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know what to say to her. I don't know how to console her. And no, you're not going to make me feel better. Nothing's going to make me feel better. I think, honestly, just sharing the story, talking about it, making other people know that it's okay to feel this way, and that to ask for help or to acknowledge that something's just off. And you don't have to be suicidal to get to that point of needing, you know, just saying, I think I might need some help. I want to live a better life. I want to enjoy life. Like, we're here. I think that's my biggest takeaway out of it for myself is, like, the little things don't really matter. There's always going to be things to stress about. I tell my kid that all the time because she stresses about her grades. I'm like, you already have great grades. In the end, is anybody going to care that you got a 4.0 or a 3.5? They're really not.
I'm 25 and no one has ever asked me what my GPA in high school was.
Ever.
Not even in college.
Not even in college. They don't
No,
really
they
care
don't.
that
I
either.
told my kid took our first college class, and I'm like, Maddie, literally,
It does
as long
not
as you get above
matter.
a B, it doesn't matter.
All you need to do is pass. And the degree doesn't say what grade you got
No.
in all your
No.
classes.
Right.
The
As long
degree
as you
says
have
the degree you have.
Yeah,
Right.
That's all.
And unless you're
down
trying to,
with
like,
that.
you know, go to some Ivy League,
Right.
you know, grad program, which if you're doing that, more power to you, work hard. I respect that. We are not doing that. So it doesn't matter. Get your degree. Don't kill yourself over the little things, and enjoy just life. Like, live in the moment, because you really, really, really never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. I say all the time, sometimes it's just not that real. Like,
That's it.
It's just not that real.
I probably should get that tattooed on my body. 'Cause
I
it is
should. I
not
say
that
it literally
real.
every day.
Me too.
It's just not that real.
I'm like, take a deep breath. It's not that real.
Yeah.
It is not that real.
I know. Especially things that you can't change. They're especially not that real.
I mean, that is what anxiety is. It's,
Yeah.
is by definition, like, stressing about things that you have no control over.
Yeah.
So I know it's easier said than done, because I do have anxiety, and I think I gave anxiety to my dogs and my child. So I get it, totally get it. But finding a way, I think meditation is great too. And I know that coming from a high-strung person, to talk about meditation seems unreal. But
No,
it's
I feel like
amazing.
it works best for
definitely-
high-strung people.
Yeah.
like, I discovered the Netflix. There's, like, Headspace on Netflix. To go to sleep to Headspace on Netflix it's heaven. It legit is. Like, and you
Do
would think
they-
it's not.
Is it? Do they speak or is it just like music?
No, it speaks. It guides you through, and it's like there's 4 different scenarios you can pick, and I only like one, and my kid only likes the other. Like, we don't like the same. They're different voices, different scenes, and the one is mine's like a ocean, and they start by, like, doing the, like, okay, you know, pay attention to your breathing, feel your toes, like, you're going to sleep. It's for sleep. It lasts, I think, 45 minutes. I don't know how Netflix just knows to turn it off. Like, I don't know if you're snoring and it just knows. I have no idea. I do it on my phone because I don't want, like, the brightness. I've never made it longer than, I think, like, the first set of waves, and it tells you, it's like, envision the boat in the distance, and then I'm like, I see it, and then I'm down. Like, I don't even remember, but it's just
man,
like,
I have to try it.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's so amazing. But it's because you're focused on paying attention to other things instead of the racing thoughts in your brain.
I like that.
Yeah, it's so good. It's really, really good. But yeah,
There's another
have to try that.
resource
There you
for
go.
our listeners.
Netflix.
Yeah. Well,
Perfect.
yeah, thank you so much for joining
thank
us
you.
again.
Thank you.
I
Thank you for
can't
having me.
and say it enough. I'm sure we'll see you
We
at
will.
NAMI Walks again.
Yeah,
on
I'm
September
I'm very excited
14th.
for this year. After last year, I was like, okay, my team, we have to make it bigger. Next year, team's going to be better. I did delay, like, I think I signed up in, like, May. I didn't start doing anything because I kind of just avoided all of that for
okay.
months until maybe August, end of August. So I really like pushed it in a month. But like we were the top team.
Yeah.
I was the top raiser. Yeah, we were like really, really good about it.
It's active now. We're recording this in February.
Yeah,
so the
it is.
website
Like I said,
is
I got
up.
the email. Yeah, so we need to start pushing, getting as many people there as possible, getting vendors there, anybody that has a resource that like, this could be helpful. Meditation, like, you know, if you have a yoga group or you have a group that just meets to do. I know that there's like a wellness circle, women's circle that goes around.
Yeah.
Bring all the men. Make sure all the men
Bring
come
all the
there.
men.
All the men need to come.
Yeah.
We're like, women are in touch with everything. Men need to get there.
Yeah, we will support you. We'll support you there.
We'll hold your hand through it.
Open to kids too.
There's
it's
free face
accessible,
painting.
yeah.
There's
There were snow
food
cones.
trucks.
There were snow cones. There was food trucks. Yeah, it was.
This year we have Waffle Miracle and then Food for Thought, which is the Perseus House food truck.
Oh yeah, that like it's like their ILP truck or whatever it is. Yeah, I looked into that.
Yeah.
I looked into hiring them for my kids' like birthday party one time too. But they're like high demand. Like
They're delicious. They have really good food.
Yeah, really good. So
yeah.
I'm excited.
Nami Walks, September 14th.
More information to come on that.
Yeah. But yeah, so thank you again for joining us. Again, I'm going to give the crisis numbers. If you listen this far, 814-456-2014 is the Erie local number. But then you can text or call 988, which is the national crisis hotline.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Of course.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
You guys are so cute.
We always have to end it with the bye.